Hey everybody, my name is Maego. I've been playing Squad for a few years at this point. Got a little over 5,000 hours in the game, and a lot of that has been in the comp scene. I'm also an admin on the tactical trigonometry server. And what I wanted to talk about today was some behavior changes that we're seeing in the players that is contributing to more frequent game losses when certain behaviors are happening. And what occurred is a little while ago is there was an update to Squad, the version 8.1 change that changed some mechanics around backcaps. I want to talk about what those changes are, what people are perceiving as the value in some of the change, and then let's talk a little bit about what the actual implication here is. Aidenhoff also just published his own video where he took an angle on looking at a lot of map control implications, and this is not going to touch on all of the same topics. Everything he said was spot on, so I'm going to try and take a different angle on the problem with a little bit of data. So I will link Aiden's video below. Please check it out. Everything in there is excellent information. So a little while ago, the Squad 8.1 change talked about how the backcapping speed was increased. Not that it changed for the normal quantity of players, but they are continuing to increase the speed at which you complete a backcap, which is the first time a capture point has been captured, not when you're trying to flip it from your opponent after they have captured it the first time. But what this change allows you to do is as you put more and more players onto the cap, you continue to make the time to capture that initial flag go down. So prior to this, once you had about 9 players on the cap, it would take around 77 seconds, and then there was a limit, and that was it. And what this change did is it allows additional people to be on the point and for that total capture time to continue to get faster and faster and faster. So this has made a lot of people think about what new opportunities exist, and there's two that kind of jump out at you. The first is if I can capture flags faster than my opponent, if they are perhaps only sending one person on their capture flags and I am sending 27 to all of my flags, I might be able to capture more points on the initial rollout. So the first opportunity that a lot of people are thinking about is how can I capture more points? And each point being worth 20 tickets, if I can get more of them, I will have more of an advantage. So the idea is if I can fast cap and work my way through all of my blue points, my blue boxes here, faster than my opponent can get through their red boxes, I will definitely get the midpoint and maybe even possibly get the next point after that, but we're really mostly going to focus here on this midpoint 20 ticket opportunity. That looks like a good thing. We have to think about how we end up accomplishing that. If I'm putting 14 to 27 infantry on this back cap, and then once it's secured, they move to the next one, and then once it's secured, it moves to the next one, and so on and so forth, that means the 14 to 27 infantry are not out there on the map. So that means I am not controlling some of the areas that I might have controlled otherwise. What that means is that by the time we finally get to the midpoint, and we might beat people there from a cap point perspective, we might not have beat them there from actually getting to that part of the map. We've definitely not beaten them in terms of being able to control that area. So even though you might get enough of control to be able to get the cap initially, you probably don't have enough control over that midpoint region to hold it for a long period of time. So when I have captured any point, that point is always a little bit of a liability because I have to defend it. If I fail to defend it, that's going to cost me a total of 40 tickets delta because my adversary gets 60 tickets, I only got 20 for it. That's a 40 ticket delta. That's huge. Cap flips and squads are one of the biggest ticket opportunities that are out there. 40 tickets, that's a little bit more than a full infantry squad over the course of a normal game. Call it a squad and a half. That could be 4 lavs, it could be 2 tanks, it could be 2 radios. It's huge. So if I get that point, if I get any point, I really need to make sure that I hold on to it. And the other thing to remember, Aiden touches this quite well, is that defending and holding a point isn't about always having people in that little zone that counts as the point. It's about controlling the area around it and the right areas around it to make sure that the enemy can't set up a strong attack or they can't get across certain crossings. But it's not always just the point itself. It's the key points around that point. The second opportunity that kind of comes up is, can I reveal the next capture point sooner in order to confirm the lane? What this data is showing you here is the exact same time to cap with certain quantities of players, refactored a slightly different way. The red line here is showing you the efficiency of those players. So for every player that I put on the cap, yes, my capture time in total goes down, but each player contributes less and less and less. So there's kind of a knee in the curve here in the red line, somewhere between 3 and 5 players. And typically what we tend to see is you might have either there's an option where people send a single player to a point, and people spend like maybe 2, 3, or 4 to a point is another pretty common one. And this seems to make a lot of sense just looking at the data, because it's right around that sweet spot as far as the value for each additional player on the cap point. What the blue line is showing you here is how much time you buy yourself relative to a single man back cap. So if I put 9 people on the point and my opponent is putting 1 person on the point, I might be able to buy about a minute and a half of time before when I reveal my second point relative to when my opponent reveals my second point. Bear in mind, in RAS, the value of me seeing the second point is not the same as what my opponent gets, because he might already know the lane, or I might already know the lane. There are a lot of cases where revealing that second point provides me no additional information, and it's just not worth it. Send 1 person in those cases. So the other thing that's interesting here is, typically, because we tend to see 3 or 4 man back caps, the value of sending a full 27 man back cap is actually only the difference between this area and this area. So you're really only going to buy yourself maybe a minute and a half at tops, more likely something closer to about 1 minute of time advantage. So it's a minute to a minute and a half. And the question I'll ask you is, does the information you're getting really worth it? Is there other options that you have to get that information? Can I fly a heli somewhere and observe where the enemy is rolling out? Can I put more infantry on the map in different places and see if we can make contact and understand where our enemy is playing so we can react to that? Putting more players on the back cap costs you map control, and it costs you ways of gathering information. Aiden talks about a number of other things. I encourage you to go check that out. So, key things to remember here is that Squad is not a game about cap points. Cap points are a way to influence tickets. I can get tickets. I can take tickets from the enemy. But the game is about tickets. Map control is one of the most important things that enables so many different ways to take tickets from the enemy. If I get my infantry in a wrap, I can farm them. If I am controlling the area, my tubes are up all the time and supporting my infantry, sniping assets, or just farming their habs. If I control the map, their hats are not limiting my vehicles and where my vehicles can go to farm infantry or kill enemy assets. Controlling the map enables you to flip caps and asset sniping in any number of different ways. So the most important thing for the team to do during a rollout is to identify and control the relevant areas of the map. Do no harm to that objective. If you can control the right places on the map, you are setting yourself up very well. That does not mean that the idea of putting 3, 4, 9 people on a backcap is never useless. It is just very, very rare situations where it is actually going to give you information that changes what you do. Aiden goes over a pretty good example. I'll refer you to his, but recognize that it's going to cost you a good chunk of your team's infantry. It's going to cost you map control, and there might be other ways that you can get the same information. So with that, best of luck. I'll see you all on the server.